ESS Intro to Resources Part 1 provides an introduction to the concept of resource as natural capital. Natural capital is resource provided by nature, but exploited by people to produce natural income in the form of goods and services. The significant ideas are all systems can be viewed through the lens of sustainability. The renewability of natural capital has implications for its sustainable use. Here's an outline of all the available movies for the Introduction to Resources unit. Use this movie to find the movie you need for review. This movie is focused here. Natural resources are forms of wealth derived from nature. Natural capital is the storage or stock. Capital is measured in mass per area terms. The forest is the storage or the stock. It's the natural capital. Natural income is a flow, the harvest, the yield taken from the capital. Natural income is what's exploited by people. In this photo, natural income is the harvest of timber from the forest measured as a rate in mass per area per time terms. Natural resources are forms of wealth derived from nature. Natural capital is the storage or the stock. Capital is measured in mass per area terms. The fish stock is the natural capital. Natural income is a flow, the harvest, the yield taken from the capital. The fish taken from the sea represent the natural income, measured as a rate in mass per area per time units. Here is the relevant IB syllabus statement. Explain the concept of resources in terms of natural capital and natural income. The definition of natural capital is resource that produces natural income in the form of goods and services. Now, this movie will not only make the distinction between capital and income, but will make the distinction between natural income as good and natural income as service. So here is another example using fossil fuels as the natural capital. Fossil fuels are formerly living organic material, now buried, pressed, and transformed into energy-rich hydrocarbons. The storage of energy-rich hydrocarbons is here. This is the natural capital. The extraction of fossil fuels from deep in the earth, as you can see here, that is the natural income. Here is another image using fossil fuels as the example to identify natural capital and natural income. The natural capital is the pocket of energy-rich material, oil, coal, or natural gas, and natural income is the harvest, seen here as the extraction of material from depth up to the surface. Natural capital is a resource that produces natural income in the form of goods or services. Now, in this systems model of a forest, we can see an input of carbon dioxide from photosynthesis and an output of carbon dioxide from respiration. And if the rate of photosynthesis is greater than the rate of respiration, NPP is positive and the forest grows. If the forest has a positive NPP, the growth can be exploited by people as a harvest of wood. The harvest of wood, kilograms per time, is natural income as a good, something tangible. Now, if the harvest is equal to the growth, the harvest would maintain the system in a steady state equilibrium. Now, hopefully, all of this feels like a good review of material studied earlier in this course. The forest as a storage is the natural capital, and the harvest as a flow is the natural income. Natural income as a good. Remember, natural income units would be rates. Here is the same systems diagram of a forest, but I've altered the natural income. The forest as a storage is the natural capital, but the natural income in this case is identified as a service, such as groundwater replenishment or erosion protection. Natural income as a service is more difficult to quantify because services are not something that we harvest. In fact, the forest must remain intact in order for populations to benefit from the service. We can only understand the true value of services when the forest is removed and there are costs for replacing or cleaning water, or costs associated with erosion damage, or costs related to the floods that happen due to deforestation. Here are examples of living resources, seen here as natural income as goods. Now, can you state the natural capital from which these goods have come? The harvest of timber, natural income with economic value, has come from a forest. The forest of trees is the natural capital. The harvest of potato is natural income from a storage of potatoes on the farm, the natural capital. Environmentally, the potatoes have value because it's energetically more efficient to eat lower on the food chain rather than higher on the food chain. Culturally, potatoes have more value in South America than they do in Asia. The harvest of fish, natural income with economic value, has come from a community of fish in the ocean, which is the natural capital. The fish may have cultural value as sushi, a culturally desired food type in Asia. In the lower right image, you should see both the natural capital and the natural income. The capital is the field of cotton plants. The baled roll of cotton is the natural income as what's been harvested from the field, measured in kilograms per unit time. Here are examples of non-living resources, seen here as natural income as goods. Could you state the natural capital from which these goods have come? The aluminum, the copper, the uranium, and the oil are all harvested from the storages deep in the earth. They're harvested in crude form. Then through industrial processes, the crude ore is purified for the purposes of making tangible products, like aluminum cans or copper wire, gasoline for combustion engines, or uranium used in nuclear power plants. Now, all of these examples of natural income have economic value, but there are other values. Copper wire is important for telecommunications, a technological value. Uranium used in nuclear power plants could be dangerous for the environment in the case of a nuclear accident, but could be good for the environment because nuclear power does not release carbon dioxide. Oil has great value in highly industrialized mobile cultures, like the one in which we live, but the combustion of oil releases carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, a process strongly responsible for changing the Earth's climate. Our decision to value oil has environmental consequences. Groundwater is a non-living natural resource. The aquifer, seen here, is the natural capital. The water moved up to the surface by pumps, or in this case, moved to the surface in the well, is the natural income exploited by people. In this table, you can see various examples of natural capital and examples of natural income as goods, tangible products, harvested in rate units. On the right side, we can see examples of natural income as service. I'll be strengthening your understanding of services in the slides to follow. Natural capital as storage produces natural income, a flow, as goods or services. And here is a strong list of potential services provided by intact ecosystems. Intact ecosystems. In other words, services depend on the system not being disturbed, systems that remain standing. Natural income as service would include moderation of climate, slowing soil erosion, flood control, renewing air, water, and soil, recycling nutrients, assisting with pollination, absorbing or diluting or detoxifying pollutants, absorbing UV light, as the stratospheric ozone layer does, provide biodiversity. Now, services have value, economic value, but people tend to underestimate the value of services until the system is removed and we're suddenly paying for these services. Intact ecosystems produce natural income in the form of services, and you can see some of the various services listed here. And these services have real economic value, except that people tend to undervalue the services. We don't appreciate them until they're gone, and we're paying to have clean water or to fix soils or to mitigate flood damage. Intact systems have other values as well: the aesthetic, the spiritual for native peoples, and the intrinsic value, which is a value of the system regardless of its use to people. Some people do understand the value of services that come from intact ecosystems, because in certain circumstances, we take the time to assist in the recovery and restoration of ecosystems. This is a tropical mangrove forest at a coastal edge. Mangroves play an important role for fish reproduction. Fish do spawn in the roots, among the roots of mangrove forests. As well, mangroves reduce the erosion of land. Now, these are services that have an economic benefit to people. In many coastal locations, shrimp farms have replaced mangrove ecosystems. The environmental damage is significant. Soil erosion and the excess nutrient load caused by the shrimp have been a concern for the health of the local environment where mangroves have been removed. As I mentioned, we don't understand the real value of ecosystem services until the ecosystem is gone. Forests, as natural capital, produce natural income as goods and services. Now, humans look into a forest and too often they see only the natural income as goods, harvestable timber, and we undervalue the services. Remember, a forest, such as this one, has aesthetic value, possibly spiritual value, and intrinsic value, a right to be, to exist without necessarily providing any benefit to people. People spend time and money to restore ecosystems, as you can see in these images. People restore ecosystems so that they can provide services such as erosion control, flood control, water renewal, climate regulation. If people were to place greater economic value on ecosystem services in the first place, restoration would be unnecessary, and the time and money spent would be saved. The stratospheric ozone layer provides protection from the harmful UV rays that would otherwise reach the Earth. The stratospheric ozone layer is non-living natural capital, and the natural income as service is protection from UV rays. Soil is natural capital that provides natural income in the form of services, such as water or nutrient retention. Soils provide the economic benefit in supporting the net primary production in agriculture. This image is meant to evoke an environmental, almost spiritual value in soil. Wetlands, as can be seen in these images, are natural capital resources and have historically been undervalued by people. Wetlands produce natural income in the form of services, such as water purification and flood control. And when wetlands are removed to build urban areas, flooding has been the consequence. In an effort to clean water that has been polluted, people are building artificial wetlands through which the polluted water percolates. Once the water has percolated through the layers of the artificial wetland, it is clean, ready to be used again. Human societies everywhere have water treatment facilities to purify polluted water. We're spending money to clean water that was originally clean before we polluted it. Water treatment facilities have become necessary because we have not kept our streams, rivers, and lakes clean. In other words, had we respected ecosystems for their services that they provided in the first place, we would not have to be spending money to clean water. Here is a table that displays natural capital in the left column and natural income in the right column. However, I have not designated the natural income as either good or service. I'm going to leave that to you. Spend some time with this slide to strengthen your understanding of the natural income in this slide as either good or service. In this slide, you can see the natural capital here and the natural income here. Now remember, natural income is equivalent to the growth of the system, the net productivity. If the rate of photosynthesis is greater than the rate of respiration, then the system grows. This is positive net productivity, and this is an amount that can be harvested as natural income. If people harvest the growth, the NPP, and nothing more than the net productivity, the system can be maintained in a steady state equilibrium. In other words, the harvest is sustainable if the harvest does not exceed natural replacement. We'll look more closely at sustainability in Part 2. And that brings us to the last IB syllabus statement of the movie. Natural capital provides goods and services that have value. This value may be aesthetic, cultural, economic, environmental, ethical, intrinsic, social, spiritual, or technological. Natural capital provides natural income as goods or services that have value. This value may be aesthetic. Here we have non-renewable natural capital, and here we have renewable natural capital. Natural capital provides natural income as goods or services that have value. This value may be cultural. Some cultures value jewelry more than others. The value of clothing made of cotton certainly varies culture to culture. Natural capital provides natural income as goods or services that have value. This value may be economic. In all of these images, we are looking at the economic value of natural capital as natural income. Gold and oil are non-renewable natural capital. Cotton, wheat, and wood, the lumber, are renewable natural capital. Natural capital provides natural income as goods or services that have value, and this value may be environmental. The ecological service is an environmental value, and those services include climate regulation, water purification, erosion control, flood control, just to name a few. How do we properly assign an economic value to the intact forest? Can we increase the economic value of the intact forest? Can we place real economic value on the services provided by the uncut intact forest? Those services include climate regulation, water purification, erosion control, flood control, and we must value these services at an economic level in order to maintain our ecological systems. Natural capital provides natural income as goods or services that have value, and this value may be intrinsic or ethical. The tiger, seen in this image, has intrinsic value beyond whatever human interests are in the tiger. Unfortunately, parts of the tiger have cultural or economic interest to people. Cultures who value tiger parts for medicinal purposes or aphrodisiacs have created a black market for tiger parts, and this has resulted in a decline in wild tiger populations. Natural capital provides natural income in the form of goods or services that have value, and this value may be social. Recreation within natural capital, as seen in this image, is a social value. Natural capital provides natural income in the form of goods or services that have value, and this value may be spiritual. This is Ayers Rock in Australia. Ayers Rock is sacred to the indigenous cultures in Australia. Indigenous peoples in North America place spiritual value in many of the species found in the wild. Natural capital provides natural income in the form of goods or services that have value, and this value may be technological. Natural capital provides natural income as goods or services that have value, and this value may be technological. And that brings us to the end of IBESS Introduction to Resources, Part 1.